I watched myself kill a man on national television. The rain in Seattle was heavy that night. It hammered against the glass window of the diner on 4th Avenue. I was just a ghost in the reflection. I was tired. My name is Mia Coleman. I am 26 years old. I work as a freelance video editor for wedding montages. I have never held a gun in my life. Yet, the giant screen above the counter told a different story. Every customer in the diner froze. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. The sound of chewing vanished. The only sound was the booming voice of the news anchor. Breaking news. Senator John Sterling was assassinated 3 hours ago. I stared at the screen. My breath stopped. The footage was grainy but clear enough. A woman walked out of the shadows in a parking garage. She raised a silver pistol. She fired 3 shots into the chest of the senator. The woman turned to face the security camera. She smiled. A cold and dead smile. It was my face. It was my hair. It was my jawline. It was even the small scar above my left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. The news anchor announced the name of the suspect. Mia Coleman. Armed and extremely dangerous. A manhunt was underway. Blood drained from my face. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. I held a coffee cup. Not a gun. I was at home 3 hours ago. I was alone. I was watching a documentary about penguins. I had no witnesses. Suddenly, a phone beeped loudly at the table next to me. Then another. Then 3 more. The emergency alert system. The shrill noise pierced the silence of the diner. A man in a blue trucker hat looked at his phone. He looked up at the screen. Then, he slowly turned his head to look at me. His eyes went wide. He stood up. He pointed a trembling finger at my face. He shouted that it was me. He screamed for someone to call 911. Panic exploded in my chest. The air in the diner turned hot and suffocating. The waitress dropped a pot of coffee. The glass shattered. It sounded like a gunshot. People scrambled back. They knocked over chairs. They looked at me like I was a monster. I backed away. I shook my head. I tried to speak, but no words came out. I had to run. I kicked the door open. I sprinted out into the cold rain of the Seattle night. The water soaked my clothes instantly. I did not know where to go. I just ran. I ran until my lungs burned. I turned into a dark alleyway behind a fish market. I leaned against the wet brick wall. I gasped for air. Sirens wailed in the distance. They were getting closer. Blue and red lights flashed against the low clouds. They were hunting me. The entire city was hunting me. I pulled my phone from my pocket. It was vibrating uncontrollably. Text messages flooded the screen. My mother asking what I did. My landlord telling me to never come back. Death threats from strangers. However, one message stood out. It was from an unknown number. No caller ID. I opened it. There were no words. Just a video file. My thumb hovered over the play button. I pressed it. The video played. It was me. Again. But this was not the security footage. It was a selfie video. The Mia in the video was sitting in a dark room. She looked directly at the camera. She looked directly at me. The fake Mia spoke. Her voice was my voice. She whispered that I should run faster. She said the police were only 2 minutes away. She smiled that same dead smile. Then the video ended. I dropped the phone into a puddle. This was not just a frame job. This was a theft. Someone had stolen my face. Someone had stolen my voice. And now they were using my own identity to taunt me. I was innocent. But in a world where seeing is believing, the truth did not matter anymore. The video was perfect. The evidence was absolute. Suddenly, a spotlight swept across the entrance of the alley. A police cruiser roared past. I pressed my body into the shadows. I was wet and shivering. I was terrified, but beneath the fear, something else began to rise. Anger. A cold and sharp anger. I am a video editor. I know how to cut. I know how to splice. I know how to fake things. But I also know one thing. Every edit leaves a seam. Every fake has a flaw. I would find the person who did this. I would find the person wearing my face. and I would take it back. But first, I had to survive the night. I pulled my hood up. I stepped deeper into the darkness. The hunt had begun. I crushed my phone under the heel of my boot. The glass screen shattered into 100 pieces. The tracking signal died instantly. I was now a ghost in my own city. But being invisible was the only way to survive. The police sirens howled closer. They echoed off the brick walls of Pioneer Square. I pulled my hood lower. I kept my head down. I walked fast. I did not run. Running attracts attention. Walking with purpose makes you look like you belong. I needed a computer. I needed to see that murder video again. I made my way to the International District. The neon signs buzzed in the rain. The streets were empty. I ducked into a basement stairwell. The sign above the door read The Hive. It was a 24-hour gaming center for insomniacs and outcasts. It smelled of stale energy drinks and ozone. I paid the sleepy clerk with a crumpled $20 bill. I did not make eye contact. I took the terminal in the darkest corner. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I was shaking, but my muscle memory took over. I logged into a secure cloud server I used for freelance work. I pulled up the news footage of Senator Sterling's assassination. I downloaded the raw video file. I opened it in my editing software. I was looking for a seam. I was looking for a mistake. The world saw a cold-blooded killer. I saw pixels. I saw frame rates. I saw lighting rendering. I played the clip frame by frame. The fake Mia walked out of the shadows. Frame 112. The lighting on her cheekbone was perfect. Frame 113. The gun recoil looked physically accurate. Frame 114. She blinked. I froze the image. I zoomed in. There it was. It was tiny. Most people would never see it, but I edit wedding videos for 14 hours a day. I know how light hits a human eye. In frame 114, the reflection in the fake Mia's eyes did not match the environment. The garage lights were fluorescent tubes, but the reflection in her pupil showed a circular ring light, a studio light. This was not just a mask. This was a composite. Someone filmed this in a studio. Then they mapped my face over the actor using an algorithm I had never seen before. It was seamless. It was expensive. It was military grade. Suddenly, my screen flickered. A red command window popped up over the video editor. I tried to close it. It would not close. Text began to type itself across the black box. Hello, Mia. We see you looking. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked up at the ceiling corner. A security camera was pointed directly at me. The red recording light blinked once. Then it stayed on. They were tracking my login. The text on the screen continued. You cannot edit your way out of this. Your bank accounts are frozen. Your apartment is being raided right now. We own your face. We own your life. Surrender. I reached for the power cord. I yanked it out of the wall. The screen went black. But it was too late. The heavy metal door at the top of the stairs burst open. Heavy boots thundered down the steps. It was not the police. These men wore dark, tactical gear. No badges. No uniforms. They carried suppressed submachine guns. They were the cleanup crew. I scrambled under the desk. I crawled through the tangle of wires and dust bunnies. I saw a rear fire exit on the other side of the room. It was blocked by a vending machine. I had 3 seconds to make a choice. I grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall. I did not aim for the men. I aimed for the server rack next to me. I pulled the pin. I sprayed the chemical foam directly into the cooling fans of the main server tower. Sparks exploded. Smoke billowed out instantly. The room plunged into darkness as the circuit breakers tripped. The gamers screamed. Chows erupted. I used the confusion. I sprinted for the blocked door. I slammed my shoulder into the vending machine. Adrenaline gave me unnatural strength. It tipped over with a deafening crash. I squeezed through the gap. I burst out into the back alley. Rain hit my face again. I heard the men shouting behind me. They were fast. But I knew this city better. I ran toward the shipping docks. I needed help. I needed someone who hated the government as much as I feared them. I needed to find the one person who warned me about this technology 2 years ago. My ex-boyfriend, Leo. He was a conspiracy theorist, a paranoid hacker who lived off the grid. I broke up with him because he said the government was stealing biometric data. I called him crazy. Tonight, I was the crazy one running for my life, and he was my only hope. I sprinted into the night, but as I ran, I realized something terrifying. The enemy knew I was at the internet cafe. They knew my passwords. They knew my face. To beat them, I had to stop being Mia Coleman. I stopped by a dirty puddle. I looked at my reflection. I took a piece of broken glass from the ground. I raised it to my cheek. The scar above my eyebrow was the only thing that marked me as the real Mia. If I wanted to disappear, I had to change the canvas. I gritted my teeth. I pressed the glass into my skin. Blood dripped from my chin onto the wet pavement. The pain was sharp and hot. It kept me awake. It kept me human. I wrapped a dirty rag around the fresh cut on my cheek. I looked like a monster, but at least I looked different. I reached the shipping yards at 3 a.m. The maze of rusted containers stretched for miles. I counted the rows. Row 42. Stack C. I stopped in front of a blue container with a faded white star. I pounded on the metal door 3 times. I waited. I pounded 2 more times. Nothing happened. Then, a hidden speaker crackled above my head. A distorted voice told me to turn around and leave. It warned me that the perimeter was mined. I stared into the camera lens mounted on the steel wall. I shouted that I was not a ghost. I shouted that I was real. I told Leo to open the damn door. Locks clicked. Heavy bolts retracted. The door groaned open just a few inches. A shotgun barrel poked out. Leo pulled me inside. He slammed the door shut and locked it instantly. The air inside smelled of stale coffee and hot electronics. Monitors covered every inch of the walls. They bathed the cramped room in a sickly green light. Leo did not hug me. He did not ask if I was okay. He pressed the cold muzzle of the shotgun against my forehead. He told me to freeze. He said the news claimed I was a killer. He said the deepfakes were getting too good to trust. I pushed the rag away from my face. I showed him the gash. The blood was bright red. It was thick. It was messy. I told him that holograms do not bleed. Leo lowered the gun. He looked at my wound. He looked at my eyes. He saw the fear. He finally exhaled. He turned to his command deck. He told me to sit down. He said he had been watching the data traffic since the assassination. He said I was trending on every network in the world. I asked him who did this. I asked him why me. Leo typed a furious string of code. A map of the dark web appeared on the main screen. He navigated through layers of encryption. He opened a site with a black background and a red logo. The logo read Doppelganger. Leo explained that this was not just a prank. It was a marketplace. He pointed to a listing on the screen. My stomach dropped. There was my face. It was rotating in 3 dimensions. It listed my voice specifications. It listed my emotional range. Below it was a price tag. Sold for $5 million. I stared at the number. Someone paid $5 million to wear my skin. Leo clicked on the transaction history. He traced the buyer's digital wallet. Usually these wallets are anonymous, but Leo was the best paranoid hacker in Seattle. He found a leak in the payment metadata. The signal did not come from a basement. It did not come from a foreign country. It came from downtown Seattle. It came from the penthouse server of Helix Dynamics. I gasped. Helix Dynamics was the biggest tech company in the state. They made medical imaging software. They claimed to save lives. Leo laughed a dry, bitter laugh. He said they were not saving lives. They were archiving them. They were building a library of human avatars to sell to the highest bidder. Assassins. Spies. Politicians. Anyone who needed an alibi could buy a face and commit a crime, while the real person was miles away. Suddenly, the lights in the container turned red. A siren blared from Leo's computer. Proximity alert. Leo spun around in his chair. He pulled up the external camera feeds. A swarm of small drones hovered outside the container. They were silent. They carried thermal scanners. They had found us. Leo swore loudly. He grabbed a hard drive from the desk. He shoved it into my pocket. He said the drive contained the tracing code. He said it was the only proof linking Helix Dynamics to the murder. Then, a loud thud shook the roof of the container. The drones were landing. They were attaching explosives. Leo grabbed his shotgun. He looked at me with wild eyes. He told me there was a trapdoor under the rug. He told me to go. I refused to leave him. He pushed me toward the floor. He shouted that only one of us mattered now. He said I had to survive to expose them. He said he would buy me time. The roof began to hiss. The metal was melting. I ripped the rug aside. I opened the hatch. I looked at Leo one last time. He was racking the slide of his shotgun. He was smiling. I dropped into the darkness of the sewer tunnel below. Above me, the world exploded. I emerged from the sewer grate 2 blocks away from Helix Dynamics. I smelled like sulfur and burnt circuitry. My hands were black with soot. But I was alive. I clutched Leo's hard drive in my pocket. It was the only weapon I had left. The Helix Tower pierced the night sky like a shard of black glass. It was 40 stories of steel and arrogance. I did not try to sneak in the back. That is what they expected. I walked through the front revolving doors. The lobby was empty. It was 4 a.m. A single security guard looked up from his desk. He reached for his radio. I did not stop. I pulled the fire alarm on the wall. The sirens screamed. The emergency lights strobed. The magnetic locks on the turnstiles disengaged automatically. It was a safety protocol I learned from a corporate training video I edited 3 years ago. I sprinted past the confused guard. I jumped into the open elevator. I slammed the button for the penthouse floor. The elevator rose. My ears popped. I checked the hard drive one last time. Leo had loaded it with a kill switch virus. I just needed to plug it into the main terminal in the CEO's office. The doors opened on the 40th floor. The hallway was long and white. It was silent. At the end of the hall, double oak doors stood open. A soft blue light spilled out from inside. I walked toward the light. I was terrified, but I was also angry. Rage focused my mind. I stepped into the office. It was a massive room. Walls of glass overlooked the rainy city. In the center of the room sat a desk. A high-backed leather chair faced the window. A figure sat in the chair. I shouted for Julian Thorne to turn around. I held up the hard drive. I threatened to erase his entire empire with one click. The chair slowly rotated. I prepared to see an old billionaire. I prepared to see a monster. I was not prepared to see myself. The person sitting in the chair was Mia Coleman. She wore a sharp white suit. Her hair was perfect. Her skin was flawless. She looked at me with eyes that were identical to mine. She smiled. It was the same cold smile from the assassination video. She spoke. Her voice was my voice. She told me I looked terrible. She told me I should take better care of our body. My knees felt weak. I stumbled back. I asked who she was. I asked if she was a clone. The figure laughed. She stood up. She walked around the desk. Her movement was fluid. Human. She stopped 3 feet away from me. She whispered a secret. She said I was asking the wrong question. She said I should be asking what I was. She told me that I was the fake. She explained that Mia Coleman died in a car accident 2 years ago. She claimed that Helix Dynamics rebuilt me. She said I was an advanced biological android with implanted memories. She said I was a glitch that escaped the lab. I shook my head. I screamed that she was lying. I remembered my childhood. I remembered the taste of strawberries. I remembered the pain in my leg when I fell off my bike. She shook her head with pity. She said those were uploaded files. She tossed a silver letter opener onto the floor between us. She dared me to check. She told me to cut my arm. She said I would not find blood. I would find hydraulic fluid. Panic seized my throat. The room spun. Was it possible? The memories felt real. But the video looked real too. Maybe I was the monster. Maybe I was the machine. I looked at the letter opener. It glinted in the blue light. I had to know. I grabbed the blade. I did not hesitate. I slashed the palm of my left hand. The pain was blinding. Warm. Thick. Crimson liquid welled up from the cut. It dripped onto the white carpet. It was red. It was iron. It was blood. I looked up at the woman in the white suit. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She was lying. It was a psychological trick. It was the ultimate gaslight. She wanted me to doubt my own humanity so I would surrender. I gripped the hard drive tighter. I realized the truth. She was not a clone. She was not a robot. I looked at the ceiling. I saw the ring lights. I saw the motion capture cameras hidden in the shadows. She was an actress wearing a mask. A digital mask projected in real time onto her face. I looked her in the eye. I told her that she forgot one thing. She asked what that was. I told her that pain is the only thing that cannot be faked. I lunged at her. I tackled the woman in the white suit. We crashed into the heavy oak desk. The impact knocked the wind out of my lungs. Papers flew into the air like confetti. We hit the floor hard. The illusion broke instantly. The motion capture cameras lost their tracking lock during the fall. The face of Mia Coleman flickered and dissolved into static. The digital mask vanished. Beneath the projection, I saw the enemy. She was not me. She was a stranger, a mercenary with cold blue eyes and a jagged scar on her chin. She was strong. She kicked me in the stomach. I gasped for air. She rolled on top of me. Her hands closed around my throat. I clawed at her face. I tried to gouge her eyes. But her grip was like iron. My vision began to blur. Black spots danced at the edges of my sight. I reached out blindly with my bleeding hand. My fingers brushed against the hard drive on the floor. I gripped it. I swung it with every ounce of strength I had left. The sharp metal corner of the drive struck her temple. She grunted in pain. Her grip loosened. I shoved her off me. I scrambled backward across the white carpet. I stood up. My legs were shaking. The mercenary shook her head to clear the dizziness. She reached into her jacket. She pulled out a suppressed pistol. She leveled it at my chest. She did not smile this time. She prepared to end it. However, she made a mistake. She stepped onto the spot where my blood had dripped earlier. The carpet was slick. Her heel slipped. It gave me 1 second. I turned and lunged for the main computer terminal. I slammed Leo's hard drive into the USB port. I hit the enter key. The screens on the wall flashed red. Then they went black. The mercenary fired. The bullet shattered the monitor next to my head. Glass sprayed across my cheek. I ducked behind the desk. Suddenly, a booming voice filled the room. It was not my voice. It was not her voice. It was the voice of Julian Thorne, the CEO. But he was not in the room. The voice was coming from the speakers. It was coming from the hard drive. Leo's virus was not just a kill switch. It was a broadcasting beacon. The virus seized control of the building's media server. It bypassed the firewalls. It hijacked the signal being sent to the news networks covering the assassination. I peeked over the desk. The massive wall screen flickered back to life. It showed the live feed of the national news. The anchor stopped speaking. The footage of the assassination appeared again, but this time, it was different. The virus stripped away the deepfake layer in real time. On millions of televisions across America, the face of Mia Coleman melted away from the killer. The pixels dissolved. The true face was revealed. It was the mercenary standing in front of me. Then, the audio logs played. The entire world heard Julian Thorne ordering the hit. They heard him negotiating the price of the deepfake software. They heard him laughing about framing a wedding editor. The mercenary lowered her gun. She looked at the screen. She saw her own face. She knew it was over. The office door burst open. Julian Thorne ran in. He was wearing silk pajamas. He had been watching from his private suite upstairs. His face was pale. He looked at the screen. He looked at the mercenary. He looked at me. He screamed at the mercenary to shoot me. He screamed that he would pay her double. The mercenary looked at Julian. She looked at the police helicopters rising outside the window. Their searchlights flooded the room with blinding white light. She dropped the gun on the carpet. She raised her hands. She told Julian that her contract did not cover live treason. Julian lunged for the gun. I kicked it away. I stood tall. I pointed at the screen. I told him to smile for the camera. The SWAT team shattered the glass windows. They rappelled into the room. Red laser sights swept across the office. They tackled Julian Thorne. They handcuffed the mercenary. A medic rushed to me. He wrapped my bleeding hand. He asked if I was Mia Coleman. I looked at my reflection in the broken monitor. My face was bruised. My hair was a mess. I had a scar on my cheek. I nodded. I told him that I was the real Mia, and I was taking my name back. 3 months passed. The rain finally stopped in Seattle. I stood on the steps of the federal courthouse. The sun felt warm on my face. It was a strange sensation. For weeks, I had only known the cold blue light of server rooms and prison cells. The verdict was read 1 hour ago. Julian Thorne received 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. His assets were seized. His empire was dissolved. The mercenary who wore my face turned state's witness. She will spend the next 20 years in a maximum security facility. I looked down at my hand. The scar on my palm was fading, but it was still there. A pink line of raised skin. It was a reminder. Reporters crowded the bottom of the stairs. They shouted my name. They wanted a quote. They wanted to know how it felt to be the woman who exposed the face theft scandal. I did not stop to speak. I had said everything I needed to say on the witness stand. I walked through the crowd. I found a quiet bench in the park across the street. I pulled a small, battered envelope from my pocket. It arrived in my mailbox yesterday. There was no return address. There was no postmark. Inside was a single playing card, the King of Hearts, and a USB drive. I smiled. Leo was alive. He did not die in the container. He had a trap door. He always had a back door. He was back in the shadows where he belonged. He was watching. He was waiting for the next fight. I was not going back to editing wedding videos. The world had changed. I had changed. I opened my laptop on the park bench. I logged into a new secure server. The government passed the Mia Coleman Act last week. It made biometric theft a federal crime. But laws are just paper. Hackers do not care about paper. Someone needs to watch the watchers. I launched my new software. It was a program I built using the code from Leo's hard drive. It was a digital shield. A program that could detect a deepfake stream in 0.5 seconds and flag it for the public. I called it the Mirror. I looked at the webcam on my laptop. The green light blinked at me. We live in a terrifying time. We live in a world where your eyes can lie to you, where your ears can deceive you, where your own identity can be weaponized against you for the right price. However, I learned a valuable lesson that night in the Helix Tower. Technology can copy a smile. It can replicate a voice. It can simulate a tear, but it cannot fake the soul. It cannot fake the chaos of being human. I took a piece of black tape from my bag. I covered the webcam lens. The screen went dark. I saw my own reflection in the black glass. It was imperfect. It was tired. It was real. I am Mia Coleman. And my face is not for sale.